With me, Tamanna and Amdar. As we get into the festive week celebrations, the hopes are up that we will see a good festive opening to the markets today as well. Let's tell you what's happening. Let's start with the global news flow, which has continued the party after Friday's markets shut in the green. So you have seen a great closing on Wall Street as well. And this is what's been happening. Fewer jobs, higher unemployment has driven down US bond yields and back this up with what the Fed said last week, where it gave indications that there was no immediate need to increase interest rates. There was a pause on. In fact, hopes are now growing that you will see the reverse, perhaps even as early as June. So the jobs report, which came in the US, is an important trigger of what we saw in the US markets, in global markets, and you saw that happening in European markets and in Asian markets this morning. US jobs saw 150,000 increases for the month versus 170,000, which was expected. Unemployment was at 3.9%, which was the highest since Jan 2022. This is giving hopes that there will be no real need for the Fed to increase rates any further. U.S. stocks rose on the back of this. Bond yields fell, and this has bolstered hope that the Fed is done with hikes for now. The U.S. 10-year Treasury was in fact at 4.57%. As per Bloomberg, hopes of a cut have now emerged even as early as June. European and Asian markets also largely closed higher in Friday trade, and like we said, the party is continuing in Asian markets. Hang Seng, Nikkei, Kospi all trading over 2 to 3%. The Kospi, in fact, almost up 4% on a rule by the government, the Korean government, that short selling will be banned till June of 2024. And that has bolstered the Kospi. Brent futures have also cooled off to 84.89 as the geopolitical risk fears ease. So we're going into trade today with an expectation of bond yields cooling off, Brent cooling off, interest rate hike scares on the back burner. So the global news flow largely positive. Let's see what's happening domestically. And really, the trigger here continues to be quarterly results, Q2 results. A mixed bag, but overall, so far, with the numbers we have pointing to the positive side. So all of these positive cues are fueling the hope of a gap up opening. That's the large consensus, and we hope that follows through, that we will go into trade today with a gap up opening. But the real party will begin truly once FPIs turn tide. Now look at what's happening with foreign investors. Just in November so far, in the first 3 days of trade in November, they've pulled out 3,400 crore rupees. Foreign investors were net sellers on Friday as well. It's the domestic investors which are continuing to buy. And over the last couple of months, we've seen that trend. Now, the hopes are to really push this positive mood into a bull market. We need to see if the foreign investors and FPIs come back to the table. Now, a weekly trading range is expected between 19,000 and 19,550. That's where the resistance levels are being looked at 19,500 or 19,550. We had a great column on the side from CK Narayan over the weekend, who's recommended stops at 19,000 and 19,145. You should go back and read that on bqprime.com if you've missed it. Let's just quickly tell you what was happening on Friday. Markets ended in a good mood on Friday, the second consecutive day. On November 3rd, BSE Sensex was up 283 points to 64,364, while the Nifty was up 97 points at 19,231, and we're hoping that continues. Let's just tell you another factor to look at today, since quarterly results is the big driver in terms of domestic news right now. Divi's Laboratory, Bharat Forge, Hindustan Petroleum, HPCL, that's the big one. FSN E-Commerce Ventures, the company that runs the brand Nykaa. Adani Energy Solutions, Bajaj Electricals, Imami, Exide, Gland Pharma, NHPC, Sobha. Some of the numbers that we will be looking at. Varun Beverages as well, one to keep an eye out on. But it was a very, very busy weekend because we've had a slew of numbers coming in, and I'm going to talk about, I would say, the big one, SBI, State Bank of India. Everyone was waiting for that. Overall, good numbers. And that is the commentary coming in this morning from brokerage reports as well. I'll quickly take you through what happened. Net profit for the quarter rose to 14,330 crores in the July-September quarter. Compared to 13,625 crores a year ago. So year on year, about 8%. We also saw net interest income rising 12% from a year ago. Other income too rose by about 21%. Operating profit, though, fell 8.07% year on year for that quarter. And NIMs also slipped by 12 basis points. But the slippage in the NIMs, in the net interest margin, was actually less than what was expected. Interesting insights from the con calls also, which took place. SBI is expecting a 12 to 14% loan growth in FY24, can improve further. NIMs will remain largely stable. That's what the management was saying. They expect an industry credit growth at 16 to 17% year on year. And the important bit, 3.4 trillion of proposals in pipeline and 1.4 trillion rupees pending for disbursement. So a strong corporate pipeline over there, totaling 4.8 trillion. They also expect growth to be 14% and expect to surprise on the higher side. A lot of brokerage reports out this morning, and most of them looking fairly positive, giving a target price between 700 and 710 for SBI. So that's definitely going to be a stock to watch. Bank of Baroda also had numbers out. Just giving you some insights from the con calls which took place. They say total advances growth is expected to be 14 to 16% for FY24. The retail book is expected to grow at 20 to 22%. Deposits growth to be 12 to 13% for FY24. The NIM guidance which they've given is at 3.15%. The banking space will be one to look at, especially PSU banks. Titan also had numbers out over the weekend. They've retained their margin guidance of 12 to 13% for FY24, but have experienced a drop in diamond prices, particularly in higher carat solitaires, due to international demand and supply dynamics. That's actually happening all over the world, where diamond prices are losing their glitter. This might lead to margin dilution over next 7 to 8 months. The carat lane story was the big one as far as Titan is concerned. Zomato, again, numbers that have surprised on the positive side, at least prima facie it seems so. They've reiterated its goal of achieving 4 to 5% EBITDA margins in food delivery. Majority of long-term growth will be driven by an earning increase in monthly transacting customers. And Zomato numbers will also be on the radar today. A lot of earnings that came out post-market hours, which we should look at. Interglobe Aviation revenue was up nearly 20% at 14,943 crores versus 12,497 crores. Their EBITDA was at 2,396 crores, so big jump there. Margins at 16% versus 1%. Reported profits at 189 crores versus loss of 1,583 crores. This is the leader in the domestic aviation market, which is showing a healthy profit. Thermax numbers were good. Sudarshan Chemicals as well, I would watch out for. Revenue up 14%, EBITDA up 66% for the quarter versus 35.8 crores. Margins up 10% and reported profit at 17.86 crores. There were some companies with not so great numbers as well. I'll just quickly go through them for you. JK Papers was one, where EBITDA was down over 24% at 408 crores versus 540 crores. Margins were at 24.69% versus 32.82%, so slip in margins as well, and reported profit was down 6.8% at 302 crores. SCI, Shipping Corporation of India, also not a very great set of numbers. Revenue down 23%, EBITDA down 27%. Margins have slipped as well. Reported profit down 42%. Gujarat Fluorochemicals revenues down 35%, EBITDA down 69%, and margins at 17% versus 36%. So a big slip over there coming in. Their reported profit was down 85%. So these are some stocks which will possibly react negatively on the basis of weak quarterly numbers. IPO watch, just to mention before we wrap up, Cello World will be coming out with its listing today. on November 6th. The final issue price was fixed at 648 per share. So a lot to watch out in today's trade, but let's simply say, if you put it in a nutshell, that we're looking at a good start, perhaps, to this week right now, with the hope of a gap up. And we're going to be taking you through all of that through the day. Remember, we're talking about these companies in detail with their management. You have to tune in for that. Just telling you what we have lined up on the shows for you today. Ashok Sonthalia, CFO of Titan, will be joining us at 9:45. 10:45, Amira Shah, promoter and MD Metropolis Healthcare. Hemant Jalan, Chairman and MD Indigo Paints, will be with us today at 1, and 1:30 you will have Kavita Shirvaikar, CFO and whole-time Director, Patel Engineering. On Talking Point today at 10, you will hear from Mihir Vora, CIO of Trust MF, and of course you'll have the F&O show at 10:30. Stocks in focus at 11, so you have a full day up for you on BQ Prime. Don't forget to tune in.